Okay, so we're about ready to get started cutting materials for the cell phone holder. And I'm actually going to use the cell phone holder to hold my phone while I am demonstrating the steps that we need to take to build it. So we have our material over here, which is sheets of 1/2 inch thick, 4 foot wide by 8 foot long plywood. And what plywood is when you have layers of wood. So if you look on the edge of the plywood, plywood is made up of multiple layers of wood that you can see. You can count the outer layer here, which is very, very thin. That's called a veneer. And that's the show wood, the wood that shows on the outside. We have another layer of veneer on the other side here. And then the thicker pieces in between, you can see 1, 2, 3 pieces here. They are large strips of wood, sheets of wood that are glued together face to face to achieve the thickness that we need, which in this case is a 1/2 inch. What happens with those layers is the grain is alternated every layer. So if you look, we see end grain here, we see edge grain here, and end grain over here. And by alternating the grain on a big sheet like this, it makes it very stable and very strong, where it's not going to warp on you after time and use. And another thing about it with plywood, it makes it so you don't have to worry about what direction the grain runs when you're cutting on the table saw or the radial arm saw. So what I have done is we're going to need about 5 sheets of plywood to get the materials for roughly 150 students. So I've done a little bit of math here and figured out that we are going to get enough for 1 sheet of plywood. What I've done is figured out the length of every piece. So the length of this plus this piece plus this piece plus this piece, that length totals 33.5 inches. What I did is added 2 inches to that just to have a little bit of wiggle room to give us 35.5 inches. So out of 1 sheet of plywood, okay, if we cut 35.5 inches and 35.5 inches, when we cut them then into 3.5 inch wide strips, which is how wide these are, we will get 13 full project parts out of this piece, 13 full project parts out of this piece, and then the remaining strip we're only going to get 24.75 of an inch out of. So what I did was calculated what I could use out of that remaining material so that we don't waste anything on the plywood. So I would be able to get out of 1 sheet of plywood 39 vertical pieces, 26 long cell phone holder pieces, 39 cell phone short pieces, and 39 bases. So out of 4 sheets, I will get 156 pieces, so I'll have a little bit extra on top of the amount of students that we have. And we're going to come up short on the cell phone pieces. So that's where we're going to need a 5th sheet of plywood to come in and to cut 4 strips that are 10 inches long. That will get us the remaining cell phone long pieces that we need. Okay, so what I am going to do first is I am going to cut these sheets of plywood. I'm going to cut 4 sheets of plywood, and I'm going to cut on each sheet of plywood. I'm going to mark 35.5 inches and cut it, and then another 35.5 inches and cut it. And I'm going to do that over here at this panel saw. I'm just backing up a minute. the panel saw here is something similar to what you might see at a Home Depot or a Lowe's, where they use it to cut large panels of material so that it's easier to handle. Many times people at Home Depot and Lowe's need it cut so that they can fit it in their car. So that's what I'm going to be cutting first, and then we're going to be heading over to the table saw to cut our 3.5-inch wide strips for our cell phone holder. And as you can see here, I have the cell phone holder right over here, so we're going to put it to the test and actually use it while I am making these cuts. And the clamp there is just weighing down the holder so that nothing tips over. So give me a minute to set this up. Okay. And we're gonna flip the camera around if we can. And we can't. So I'm gonna rotate the, actually, let me stop this.